All right, in association with Inappropriate Earl and the Sit Down Zumock, we bring you The Bad Guys Volume 5. With me, as always, is Earl Skakel, the great Earl Skakel, where you can watch his new cartoon, The Jellies, on HBO Max. But Earl, would you like to introduce today's guest?
I would, and I'm going to try and not cry during this interview because his story has affected me so much. Willie O'Ree, great hockey player, the Jackie Robinson of African-American players in the NHL, but I think a man who is just as important is the great Val James, who was the first U.S.-born African-American player. So it's an honor, Mr. James, to have you in the house.
Well, thank you. It's an honor to be here, and thank you, Earl. It's been a long time since the last time we talked.
Yes, and I will get the plug out of the way now. Everyone, please buy the book Black Ice, written by my friend John Gallagher. It's an amazing story because I don't think people appreciate what you went through, especially younger fans who grew up watching maybe Jerome McGinley, Donald Brashear, George Laraque, Anson Carter. It was a lot more palpable to be an African-American player, but you did it in the mid-'80s when racism was pretty high.
Yes, I did. It was quite an ordeal and an adventure, I would say. It was one that I wouldn't trade for anything in the world because it did get me to where I am today. And I know that you've done quite a bit over the last few years to get me recognized. And I want to thank you first off.
Oh, I mean, the honor is really all mine and Chad's, because I think, especially given the role you served in hockey, primarily was the tough guy. I don't like saying the word goon. I think it's a little enforcer, tough guy. To be one of the very few black players in the game at that time, frankly, beating up the other team's most likely white player, I think was even tougher than what Willie O'Ree had to go through.
Well, the thing was that being the first black player and playing in a sport that was predominantly white, it was one of those things that when I did fight with someone that was white, that would start the controversy because people didn't have too much to say, and that was the only thing they could do to pick at me and hopefully throw me off my game. Now, I know we'll separate this now, goon and enforcer. Goon is someone who goes out and intentionally tries to hurt someone. Doesn't matter what it is, stick to the face, stick to the groins, anywhere they can hurt you, they will try. Knee to knee. An enforcer is the guy that goes out and makes sure that the goon does not get out of hand. Okay, for those of you that are listening that don't know the difference and think they are the same, that's how that is.
I want to know, because I'm currently in Tampa, Florida. I just moved from Los Angeles to Tampa. You were originally born in Florida. Yes. How does somebody in Florida pursue hockey? I'm curious.
Well, it goes back to my parents moved from Florida when I was 3 years old. Okay, so they're Floridians just as I am. I was born in Florida. The rest of the kids were born in New York, and there was 5 others besides myself. And my dad moved to New York to try and make a better life for the family, and also to get away from all the racism that was happening down south at the time. Now we're talking 1960, and things were starting to erupt. People were asking for better rights for blacks, just blacks at that point in time, and things were getting kind of crazy because the people just did not want to let their slaves go or their workers go, however you want to look at it. People were not willing to give that up, so we had to get out of there, and we went to New York, as I said, Long Island, and we started out on a potato and horse farm. My dad was the foreman and overseer of the farm, so the migrant workers would come up in the summer, and he would get all the fields and all that ready before they got the potatoes planted. And that, now it was a potato farm and a horse farm, and there was probably about 300 acres of potatoes. So there was probably at least 60 workers that would come up every year to pick the fields, and then they would go back. So we did that from the time when I was probably about, like I said, 3, 4 years old. And we got out of that when I was about 12. So I had a few years of learning farming and all that hard breaking work, supposedly. We had to get hay that would come in for the horses, and also potatoes had to be sorted and shipped out. I was kind of young to be doing that at the time, but I was still on the scene watching it happen. So it was one of those enlightening experiences that gave me a good work ethic. Now, you know that on a farm, you work from sun up to sundown, and if something has to get done, you keep working until it gets done. And so that was one of those things that stuck with me. If you want to get a job done, you have to stick to it. You have to be persistent, and you have to persevere in everything that you're going to try to do. Now, we went from there to Hauppauge, Long Island, which is in Suffolk County, and from there, my dad ended up getting the job at the Long Island Arena. He started out as a night watchman, and eventually worked his way up to being in charge of things there, all events. So it was one of those things that he was also like that. He worked his butt off and made sure that he took care of the family, and whatever he had to do to take care of the family, he did.
So if your dad doesn't get that job at that arena, you might not be putting on some skates.
Probably not, because I was into soccer at the time, like hardcore. I was already being scouted. I was a pretty good prospect from what they were saying. I was too young to realize that myself at the time, because most of the talking between colleges or anything like that were done with your parents, and you just went with what your parents said. They said you could go, you go. If they said you couldn't, you didn't. And funny, I should say that my mom did not want me to go away to play junior hockey in Midland, Ontario, and we sat down and talked, and eventually I decided I got to go. If I'm going to pursue this, I have to go. And that was at the age of about 16, 15, 16. It was a very nice adventure, I guess we could call it, because the whole thing's been an adventure. It's one of those things that it just keeps on giving. Even up to this day, there's still things happening that I can say that I've actually made a difference in life for people, and also for myself. And hopefully some of the things that I've written in the book will show people that with determination, perseverance, and execution and hard work, that you can get it all done. Now, all of this can be done if you have a big heart. And if you don't put your heart into something, you'll never get it done. And that's the biggest thing with anything that you do. And the passion that you put into these things will bear fruit if you stick with it. And people usually will stick with something, and just before they're about to make it, they'll decide they want to quit. When if they'd waited another 6 months, it would have all been theirs.
Well, thanks for describing my career right there. Thanks.
Sorry about that. Really.
Yeah, I think you lost Chad at heart and determination.
When you said hard work and potato field and all, I was like, whoa, what's that?
Yeah, I'm sure you work pretty hard in your life. You look like a guy that works hard.
Well, looks can be perceiving. Earl, since I did so much research on you because Earl is in love with you. So
thanks, Earl. Where's the candies? It's Valentine's Day.
It's strictly in a professional manner.
I understand
that. Did the start of because in the 80s, hockey, to be honest, was a pretty white sport at all levels. And you played in the Quebec Major Junior League, which some may argue is still racist today.
Really?
Was that the first? Yeah, well, I mean, there was a player on the Rangers recently who had some problems with ethnic teammates. Let's just say that. Was that your first introduction into people maybe having a problem with you playing a white sport was with the Rimparts?
And no, my first introduction to that was when I was like 13 years old, and we were playing in Michigan, and I can remember being on the ice and this guy was calling me the N-word. And to me, we've been hanging around with guys of a mixed group for all my life at that point in time. So it didn't really faze me until he came right down to the glass and pointed me out and said, "I'm talking to you," and that was, I was like, wow. it kind of blew me away, and I was completely shattered for the whole warm up. You know, the guys came over once they heard what this guy was doing and started trying to get him with the sticks and that. But I just said, you know what? It's not worth it. You're going to hit this guy. We're all going to go to jail. and and get thrown out of the tournament as well. So forget about it. We'll figure it out.
And that was from the fans. How much of that type of language did you hear on the ice from other opposing players?
In the beginning, a few guys would try it, but then I tune them up a little bit and I'd have no problems. And then once the word got around the league, don't say that. No one really said anything. Of course, I'm sure they muttered under their breath, but what good is that?
Right. Because you were truly, in my opinion, the heavyweight champ of not only junior hockey at that time, but when you were drafted by the Red Wings and played in the minors. You know, there was some tough guys, you know, John Kordick, Dave Brown. But I'm hearing rumors that Dave Brown was actually afraid of you, which was interesting.
No, I don't. I think that might be a bad rumor. I can remember when we had our fight, Dave was a true gentleman and a true warrior. And the thing was that, I'll give you the whole story. We were playing Maine Mariners, and Maine was the affiliate with the Philadelphia Flyers. We were the Rochester Americans, who were affiliated with the Buffalo Sabres. And so we were playing in Portland, Maine that night. And I can remember seeing him on the side boards, stretching, had the bald head cut, and just stared me down the whole warm-up. I skated around it, and his eyes never left me. And I'm thinking, man, was this guy in love with me or what? So then finally someone said, well, that's Dave Brown. He's the new tough guy that just got here. He's Philadelphia property. Watch out for him. He's really tough. He's been taking a lot of guys out since he got here. And I guess at that point in time, he'd only been in Portland for a month, but he had went around the league and taken on every tough guy in the league and beat them. You know, he was a very, very fine finesse fighter. I had a little bit of a problem, but in the end, I thought that I edged him out. It wasn't one of those where you beat the guy down. It was like we were throwing him pretty good. He's a lefty, I'm a righty, so we both were landing. So it was one of those when it was over, because it started out. It was the first period. We both got on the ice together at the end of the period, finally. So now we're out there, and he's looking me up and down. I'm looking at him, just wondering if he wants to drop the gloves. And all of a sudden, he gave the fake like he was going to drop the gloves. I faked him and just stood there with my gloves on. So he got a 10-minute. So then after he come out of the box, he comes over and he goes, Val, you know, where we go back on the ice together. And I can remember Mr. Koharski was the ref that night. So yeah, he's pretty funny. He's a great guy. So we're standing there, and he's jawing me. He says to me, Val, if you're afraid of me, I can understand that, because, you know, I've beaten up a lot of guys in this league already. So you might be a little leery. And I was like, well, no, that's not it. That has nothing to do with it. I go, sorry about that early, getting to take the 10 minutes. So then we looked at each other, and I said to him, look, why don't we do this? When the puck drops, we'll both throw our sticks and our gloves to the boards, so nobody steps on them, so there can't be any discretion on who's going to win this fight. And I don't want someone to step on something and go down, because that's not right. So so Koharski's yelling at us at the same time. You guys, if you start anything, I'm going to give you 10 minutes. I'm going to give you a match game. I'm going to give you a gross misconduct. So you guys won't be playing for at least 10 games. So I turned to Mr. Koharski and I go, Koho, come on, man. I go, he just insulted my honor. I got to defend myself. I got to defend my honor. He goes, you guys drop the gloves, you're done. So needless to say, we dropped the gloves and we had a really good fight. I edged him out a little, and I know that I had won that one because he acknowledged it once we got in the box, because I hit him pretty good. And by the time he got to the box, he had a black eye, which was one of those things I was like, wow, that quick? Must have got a good one in there. Like, we're throwing him pretty good. So Koharski comes up to us after we're sitting in the box, and he goes, that was a great fight. He goes, it's a good thing you guys had a great fight. I'll be throwing you out of the game right now. So he let us stay, and we played. And after that, everything was good, right? So, and probably a week later, Dave got called up to Philadelphia and never came back.
Well, when you were drafted in 77, like I want to go back real quick before we move forward. I mean, what was your parents' reaction? You know, your father uprooting from Florida for a better life, you know, from his early beginnings of, you know, doing the farming, and then you get drafted by the NHL. Like, what are your parents' reaction to that? I mean, that's like a
Well,
cool
Chad, it
thing.
was kind of a bittersweet time. At that point in time when I did get the contract, my dad had been diagnosed with cancer,
Oh,
and had given him 6 weeks to live. Right, so it was one of those tough times. Him and I brought the contract to the hospital, showed it to him, we read it together, and had to cry together that we had done all that work to get to where we got, and finally it bore fruit. So we were pretty happy about that. It was just that was kind of a downer, and my mom was really happy, but she wasn't really into hockey too much. She tolerated it, but it wasn't something that she'd turn on the TV and go, "Let's watch the hockey game." No, it wasn't one of those. You know, she'd rather watch a football game or a soccer game before she watched the hockey game. And the thing was that my dad was an excellent athlete himself. He was a football player, and if I hadn't been born, he probably would have been up there in the league playing with Jim Brown and that. They were saying I had never saw it, but from what I've been hearing from people that had been around then, they were saying that his talent was comparable to Jim Brown, and he was a very strong guy. You know, he could carry things. It's like, I'll give you an example. One winter, we had run out of hay, so we had a load brought in on the pickup truck. So on the way out to the barn, it was snowing like crazy. There was probably 12, 15 inches of snow on the ground. Truck gets stuck with the load of hay on it. So the owner of the farm happened to be there at the time. So he got in the driver's seat. I'm looking out the window with all of this going down, and he backs it up and they kind of rock it. And the next thing I know, I'm watching, he's got the back end of the truck off the ground with the load of hay in it.
Jesus.
And I'm like, holy mackerel. So it was one of those things that was just, I was like, wow. So then, once you get older, you get a little cocky, you think you can whip your old man's ass and all that kind of stuff. But I never got to the point where I wanted to actually try it, right?
Yeah. So you remember when I
But
picked up that truck? Shut up.
yeah, exactly, pretty much, right? But I could give you all kinds of stories. Like once he was at the arena, we used to have a concert series that would go through as well, and that was Michael Paparo Productions. So we every week in the summer we had some type of concert. You know what? I've seen every known band that you can think of from our era. I've seen all of them, and it was I got to say that was another part of life that was just wonderful, because under any other circumstances I probably wouldn't have gotten that chance. Like think about it. Any group you can think of, I've seen, and I've been there for the sheer fact that we had to set up for it. So obviously we were the workers of the arena. We were the wrecking crew from the arena, and we ranged from the age of 13 to about 19, and we were able to pull it together with the help of my dad being our overseer in that and getting us into it. At first it's a learning experience, but I can remember I used to go to the arena with him when I was 12 years old. I wanted to work so bad. I wanted to go down and help on the ice and put the stage together, because at one point we were also the home base for the New York Nets in that. So I'm sure you've read all of that as well. So we had lots of things going. We'd have tractor pulls going, rodeos, circus, concerts, home and garden shows. So there was everything you could think, car shows, everything you could think of. We did, and it was one of those experiences that I would never take that out of my repertoire, because it taught me so much. At that point, you learn what it takes to put shows on. You learn how much it costs to put shows on. And you learn how much it costs you if you don't make your time limit. Because I can remember when we got it done, we had to have everything done by 11 o'clock. No, it was 12 the next day. That usually was a hockey game on a Friday night and the concert would be on Saturday night. So as soon as the hockey game was over, we'd start setting up for the concert. So we'd work right through the night. And we get it all done. And I can remember saying to my dad at one time, what happens if we don't get it done? He goes, well, it's going to cost a lot of money. Now, being a kid, how much money? $100,000 an hour. That's what it would have cost back then. I don't know what it is now. So it was one of those things where it taught me a lot about everything. I saw them, learned about the Super Trooper lights, those ones that are really hot that you stand next to when you get sunburned. So those are pretty nice. I got to meet a few guys. I got to meet Bert Cummings, got to meet Alice Cooper. it was a good time. It was a real good time. I can remember when Ozzy came on, and that was when he had the Bat Out of Hell tour going, and I had no idea he was going to bite the head off the bat, right? And all of a sudden he did that, and I'm like, what did he just do? Did he just bite the head off the bat? You know, he did it so quick and threw it away so fast. It was like, oh, okay. But
what year was this? 75 or something? Or
oh yeah, way back 75. The concert series that I was involved in when I was working there, it was probably 1973 to about 1976, 77.
so you probably saw Zeppelin. You probably saw everybody, right?
Yes, I saw Zeppelin, Pink Floyd,
Rolling Stones,
Frampton, Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, Guess Who, Jefferson Starship, Jefferson Airplane. Okay, saw them when they both made a transition. Then Genesis, then Phil Collins when he split up and they became just Phil Collins. So I can remember seeing Genesis at the rink that summer, and I had to go to Quebec for that winter. So we saw him there, and at that point they were still Genesis. So when I saw him in Quebec City, that's when they had just switched the name to Phil Collins, and they had gotten a beautiful light show machine, and it was a laser light, and it was unbelievable. It was like a little R2D2 sitting on the stage, and it was just throwing light everywhere. It was just amazing, and both concerts were great. So I can say that I've been in a few places where I shouldn't have been, but it was all worth it. And it was fun.
You're like Forrest Gump. You're in all these time situations.
I know. It's like I'm kind of wondering. I'm time warping now. It's like, wow. Like I said, it was one of those times that if anyone could get their children to do something like that, which would be kind of hard today because the kids aren't really into too much hard work, which is what our parents wanted us to do. You know, they didn't want us to work as hard as they did, but to make more money. So I guess it's working out.
Earl, what was another thing that you loved about his book, Black Ice, which you can get everywhere, right? Audible.
Yeah, it's on Amazon and all available places. I don't know where else you get books other than Amazon. I don't think there's bookstores anymore, but it's
at Amazon. It's in Amazon. It's in all the bookstores pretty much, and you can order it online through Amazon and through what's the other one? There's one more I can't think right now. But the book was also an ECW Press book, and that publishing house is out of Toronto.
And I often tell people about the book, even if you don't like hockey, hockey's almost the background to it's a book about life and just like I said, what you went through. And I had a question for you, Val, because I know this happens with a lot of players when they go from juniors to the pros, and at some point they go, I might have to fight a little bit because I'm not going to score enough at the NHL level. Was there a point, whether it be in juniors or the minors, where you thought, I might have to fight a little more to stick to the next level?
Well, I fought quite a bit in juniors, you know. And the thing was that I was also scoring goals, Earl. I think the one season I had 14, or I averaged about 30 points a year in juniors, right? So it wasn't that I couldn't score. It was that they didn't want me to score because they didn't want me to get that feeling of, oh, I'm a goal scorer now because there goes your enforcer, right? All of a sudden he's doing things that you don't want him to do. And I've been told at points in my career, you're not supposed to be playing hockey. You're out there to intimidate. Do not go out and try and be Wayne Gretzky or Mario Lemieux. So you have to run with what you have. And I have to say this because a lot of people don't like what they're doing. They think that they're being left out, or they think that they're being maltreated. Well, you can't look at it like that. You got to look at it that you're getting an opportunity and make the best of the opportunity that you get. Now, whether you have to fight, crawl, spit, whatever it is, you do it. And then once you get where you're going, at that point in time, you now have the opportunity to make sure that what happened to you doesn't happen to somebody else.
Oh, absolutely. I just meant that, you know, in this era of hockey, fighting was used as a strategy. You know, if you look at the Flyers, obviously became famous for their 2 cups, and then the Islanders when they got Clark Gillies to kind of counteract,
Yeah.
that
Clark was counteracting Mr. Semenko from Edmonton at that time.
Yes.
I remember all of that because being a Long Island boy, since we were all hockey players and we played juniors, they would let us come to the Islander games for free. So we got to meet all those guys, the Nystroms, the Trottiers. It was something else. I'll tell you, I can remember I'd been in juniors for 2 years at the time. I had done my time in Midland, which was junior B, and I had done a year in major A, which was in Quebec City. So we got a chance. We came home and someone said, well, that's some tickets to the Islander game. They're free. They said we could come. So we went. And I can remember standing at the snack bar and standing next to Clark Gillies. And man, was he big, thick, muscular. And at that time, I still had a year left, and I'm looking at these guys going, man, I got to get big like that in order to stay in that league. So I ended up working my way up there. Like I said, I took the back roads. You and I talked about this before. I didn't take a direct route to anything. It was always here, give me the car, and I'll ride around the country a little while, and I'll be back. All right. So I ended up playing my juniors, and I was at that point in time, juniors went up to 20, was 20, but 21 was supposed to be your cutoff date or cutoff age. And at that point in time, it was 21, but you couldn't turn 21 during the season. And so it had to be like your birthday had to fall in June or July and everything was cool. But my birthday fell in February. So my last year juniors, I didn't get to play because I would have done 20 to 21, and that would have been my last junior year. I maybe could have done a little something more and got drafted a little bit higher. But as things fell, no, it didn't work out that way. I got drafted in the last round by Detroit, which I was very happy to be drafted, period, because there was a lot of guys that played that never even never even looked at for being drafted. It didn't matter. They were either too small, too scared, too something that got them off the chart. So I can remember we were playing in Memorial Cup, and there was this kid who kept calling me the N-word. And I'm like, what's with this guy? I was so, I couldn't get to him, but I tried a few times. And on that team, you had Harold Philiboff, Barry Beck, Harold Snaps, and who was the coach for Toronto that got fired a couple years ago?
That's a lot of coaches. Babcock?
Babcock. He was on that team as well. So it was one of those things that all these guys that went on, and out of that New Westminster team, it's a 23-man roster, 20 guys playing 3 subs. Okay, so 20 of those guys got drafted off of that team. From our team, I'd say 10 to 12 of us got drafted as well. So, and we were all big. At that point in time, when we played the Memorial Cup in Montreal, we were considered the biggest team in all of hockey for juniors. Okay. And this is pros and everything. Well, the average height on the New West team was 6'2". Okay. So, I had the smallest guy they had was 5'10". Everybody else was 6 foot or better. And on our team, we had a couple of guys that were around the 5'8", 5'9", but most of us were 6 foot, 5'10", 5'11". And all good size, 190 pounds, 200 pounds. In juniors, you're a little bit lighter. So once I went to pros, like I was saying before, I had to beef myself up a little bit. So I went in at 195 pounds when my first year. When I went to camp, I was all scared that I was going to be too fat or something. I don't know why, but I was able to get through that ordeal, and I was undisciplined at that point, and that's the main reason why I did not get a shot in the Detroit organization, and that was my own doing. And I mentioned that in the book so that anyone who decides to do something will realize that you must have discipline all the time, especially when you're trying to strive for a better job or for excellence. It all falls into that category. And the thing with sports is it's supposed to teach the discipline, the execution, the heart, and the passion for things. And it's not just hockey, it's all sports. And if we take all of those things that we're supposed to be learning from the sports and we superimpose that on everyday life, you're going to be successful. There's no way you can't be.
We just had
Okay,
Theo Fleury on the podcast, and he was telling us like how, he overcoming adversity and his past, and he took that all on the ice to the point where he would just die on that ice. I mean, where do you find your personal motivation when you were playing? Was it like just from being one of 6 kids, maybe the racism part,
Well, I got to definitely say that the racism part gave me a big boost, because it was like, okay, you're thinking I'm this, you think, well, I'm going to show you that I'm a little bit different. And the thing was that I'd go out and, you want to call me the N-word, you want to call me whatever you want to call me. I'm going to take that energy and use it on one of your players. So I suggest that you be quiet. Otherwise, all your players are going to be off the ice. So that's how I handled all of that, and of course, a repetitive thing, years and years of hearing something, eventually it does get under your skin. So it kind of wrecked me emotionally a little bit. And through writing the book, it was a therapeutic aid. And John Gallagher was really helpful when it came to that. Him and I did this book. It took us 2 years to get it together. And he was very instrumental. And this, to me, was something that I got to get all of this off my chest, which was a good thing. Once you get that poison out of it, you can really start to rebuild everything. And that's pretty much what happened. Got that done, got the book published, and then life for me, hockey-wise, started again. Okay, so I was starting to do some alumni things, some guest appearances, some guest speaking in some parts, and it was one of those things that it's taken me, since we released the book, about 5 years to actually get the recognition that I've gotten today. And thanks to the Sabres organization and the NHL and Toronto Maple Leafs as well, they've all at this point gotten behind me and supported me quite a bit. It took the big guys a little bit of time to get behind me, but now they're kind of behind me too. So I got to say thank you. At least I at one point, no one knew who Val James was. They had no idea. Okay, now at least the word's out a little bit, and it's getting around to the American people where it wasn't before. Okay, so and a lot of I say that because this has come up Black History Month for the last few years, and then all of a sudden this happens. We get the podcast going, and there'll be a lot of people going, Black Ice, Val James, where did he come from? When did he play? How come we missed him? How did we miss him? So all these questions come up, and now everyone's starting to realize that we do have an American player that did play in the National League, a Black player. So that is a good thing, and a lot of people are really stunned by it, and here we are, what, 30 years later, 40, yeah, more closer to 40, yeah.
What's funny, Val, is it's purely coincidental that you're on during Black History Month. Earl and I gave a list of people we wanted to talk to on the podcast to our friend Ashley, and she reached out, and it just happens to fall in Black History Month. So I can't think of the perfect guy, the perfect story. Everything about it's perfect. So this was not planned. We just wanted to talk to people we liked.
Well, thank you for liking me. And I like being on the show. I like talking. Ask Earl. We talked up the storm the last time.
When did you guys talk, Earl? Earl, when did you guys talk?
We've talked over the years because my friend John, like Val said, authored the book, or co-authored with Val. And John's well, I don't want to say what he does because he has a pretty secretive job, but he's a big hockey fan. And, it's funny you mentioned Barry Beck. I speak with him often online, and he's a big fan of yours. And he told me about that teammate who was calling you that word, and not to paint every player you played against in a negative light, but even Barry said they talked to the teammate and said, shut the F up.
Yeah, they did.
There's no room for that.
You know what? Him and Harold were great, because I can remember, and it was towards the end of the game. I'd had enough. We were losing the game. So this guy did it again. And then after he did it, he ran to the bench and jumped between Barry Beck and Harold Philipov. And I'm looking, and I know these guys, 6'7", 6'6", and 230, 250 pounds. And it's like, you know what? That's not going to stop me. So I skated right up to the bench. I looked at both of them. I go, look, I want that guy sitting in between you. I go, but if I got to go through the two of you to get to him, I will. and they kind of gave it the one of those saying, I'm kind of going, I guess that's my cue. So I leaned in, I might go, you know what, if you come back out in this ice again, I'm gonna rip you apart. But they had my back. And for an opposing team who's never seen you before in your life to have your back like that, that's respect. And I respected them and honored them for what they did that night.
Did you ever, I know most fighters are friends off the ice and, you know, they'll go out for a beer after the game. I know you had a very amazing feud with the ex minor league coach of the Kings, Mike Stothers.
Oh, yeah.
Did you ever not like who you were fighting? I mean, like when you look back, like a John Cordick or
no, there was really nobody that I didn't like. There was a couple of guys that I didn't like their antics. Okay, right. So they were guys that fell away to the side, and they were, to say the least, they were goons. Okay, and I can remember that they had no qualms about hurting people, none whatsoever. So I ended up fighting with them. I won't mention their names. I can't, kind of at a loss right now. So
it's all good.
Yeah, but I can't say that there was. Wait a minute, maybe there was one guy. That's right. He played for Baltimore, and I hated Bennett Wolf. I don't know if you heard that name before, but him and I used to go all the time. It wasn't that I hated him. I hated him. I just hated him on the ice. He was a really good guy, though.
Yeah, I mean, this is in the era of like a Bennett Wolf, Craig Cox. You know, people of that era. So
remember Lance Bro?
Oh, absolutely. I mean,
yeah. So
I was a Barry Beck
too.
man. Yeah, oh, yeah. I mean, well, you had some coaches. I want to get into this. We don't want to take up too much. I could talk to you for 10 hours, but
well, I can talk for that long too.
Oh, great. Chad, get the batteries. You played for some coaches that were, I guess you'd say, pro fighting, and John Brophy, the legendary coach, and Mike Keenan. Who did you enjoy playing with for more between those two?
Believe it or not, John Brophy. Mike, I love playing for Mike. Don't get me wrong, but I had a long history with John Brophy. Like, I'd known Mr. Brophy since I was about 9-10 years old. Okay, like he played for the Long Island Ducks. You remember that team? A lot of people don't.
Yes.
They were an Eastern Hockey League team for those of you that have never heard of them, and they were based out of the Comac Long Island Arena. But John was very instrumental in teaching us the ins and outs of hockey, because at that time our organization was really young and we were just pretty much starting out. I think when I got into the junior league for our area, they'd only been going like 2 or 3 years, but we had good hockey players, but that's only good hockey players because we had good teachers. You know, we had the likes of Buzz Deschamps, John Brophy, Sam Gregory, Norm Ryder, and a bunch of other guys that never really made it out, that didn't get to play in the pros the way they would like to, but were good hockey players in their own rights. And we had all of these guys that had hung around the island and married girls from the island. So they figured that this was their way of giving back to the sport what the sport had given to them. And I have to thank all of those guys and all of the McGuigans and the Skidmores and the Lynches that were there for us at the time, the Doniakos, and Mr. Doniaco ran the whole league, the whole system for our organization. So, and that was like from Pee Wee right up to junior level. And at that time, it was only the Met League because we didn't have a junior B or a major A in the States at the time. If you wanted to be a hockey player, you had to try and get your skills up good enough so that you go to Canada and try and make a team and then learn all the intricacies of the sport there. And then eventually our hockey program in the States picked up, and we really didn't have a good program until 1979, 1978 is when we really started coming around. But that was with a lot of help from Canadian coaches and things like that. So in 1980, we won the gold medal for our country. You remember the Miracle on Ice? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So if I hadn't been playing in Erie at the time and getting paid, I would have had a shot at trying out for that team. But at that point in time, when it came to Olympic competition, anyone who had been paid money to play the sport, any sport, didn't matter whether it was hockey, basketball, football, was eliminated from competing in that sport and in that tournament, because that was supposed to be an amateur tournament.
The rules keep changing.
And after we had won the gold medal, I was pissed off that I didn't get a chance to even try out for the team, that maybe I could have been swinging a gold medal around my neck. Okay. Then they changed the rule. It was like, okay, now everybody can play. And it was like, what? What do you mean everybody can play? No, I can't play. It's too late. But I think all in all, I don't know what that probably wouldn't have done much for me, because I was already set and running down a line that I was already supposed to go down. So from there, at that point in time, I can remember that I was just getting ready to go to camp for to try out for a spot in the Buffalo Sabres organization. You know, I would have taken anything at that time. I would have went to and at that time there was what? The International League, the American Hockey League, and the National League. So there weren't a whole lot of leagues for a whole lot of players to play in. Like today, players, you can go, there's so many teams, and you got to remember there's what, 30 NHL teams? So there's over 30 NHL teams, which makes over 30 American League teams. And then also the league that's just under that also makes a place for players that are not quite ready for the American League, but will be a place to play and kind of get their feet wet and get their head into the game and what it's going to be like. Like the transitions between the leagues, if you go from juniors, we'll start at juniors. It's a one-step difference from junior B to junior A, and we're talking speed-wise, and from junior A to, say, semi-pro, which would have been the International League at that time. It's another step up in speed. So, and it's not that you are or bad or anything. It's just you have to learn how to skate and how to keep up with the flow of traffic, if you want to put it like that. And even going from international to American League, like we were considered semi-pro when I played in Erie. And so I went from there to camp in for Buffalo, which was held in Lake Placid, which was an Olympic-sized arena, which I'd never skated in, which was like, it seemed like it took 2 days to go from one end to the other. And I can remember the drills were just killing. And at that time, as I was saying to you before, I had to get big in that. I had worked out all summer. I left Erie, and I was at 195 pounds. I showed up at camp the next fall at 216 pounds, solid muscle. I ate weights all summer, ran a little bit. I got on the ice, but it's still a big difference. I just going out playing rec hockey to get into super organized hockey. So it took me a couple of days to kind of get into the groove of things, and we're doing laps and we're running around Lake Placid, or it's not Lake Placid. What the heck was the name of that? That was the one with the cow movie. Remember that movie that they had in Lake Placid with the big cow that got eaten, but the big alligator that was eating the cows?
Yeah. You're talking about Lake Placid in Florida?
No, Lake Placid, New York.
Oh, there's Lake Placid down here in Florida. I performed there a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, did you really?
Yeah.
How was it?
It was good because it's in the middle of nowhere, so they were excited people actually came there. So they're like, this is fun.
Wow, nice.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
that looks like that'll be on your venue for the next few years.
There it is.
They want you.
Speaking,
nice.
I do want to ask this real quick, and I don't mean to interrupt because I know Earl has real questions, but I actually have an. Why is not Black Ice, the Val James story, why has this not been optioned as a movie script? Earl, you're in Hollywood right now as we speak. You're in the thick of it. You're on a cartoon on HBO Max. How do we make this a movie? Let's make some money.
Yeah.
Well, I do think.
Go ahead, Earl.
Oh, no, go ahead, Val.
No, I was just going to say I had a girl approach me, but I don't know if it's going to be a movie. Maybe this is all still in the works, and I would rather see a movie so that we can actually get into things and maybe turn this book into something that's going to be helpful to everybody. Now, as a book in itself, there's so many lessons in there to learn. Aside from getting past the racism and all that. And as Earl was saying earlier, the hockey part of the book is just like filler. it's more of a story for everyone to learn something, to realize that, you're gonna face animosity in your life, and you have to figure a way to get around it. Besides hurting people, you have to deal with it, and sometimes you have to think outside the box, and that usually will work for you if you do it right.
Well, I'm thinking because of the climate as of today and everything we've been going through the past couple of years, I think right now your story alone is something that I could see on the big screen. I mean, I'm just from an outsider's perspective, I think that would be a hell of a movie and a great story to tell.
Yeah, so do I. But we'll see. Like I said, we'll see what happens. It's like not too many directors, I guess, and producers are interested in that. And at the time when things were going on, it was the subject of racism was just too hot.
Yeah.
Okay, you had all that stuff happening down south, and you don't want to force feed people a racism story when they've already had so much racism shoved up their butt at that point that it's just gonna be a flop. So and it's all a timing thing as well. And Earl can tell you that too. You have to pick your spots when you're going to release stuff like that. Like when they release Roots, that was another one of those things that was really controversial, but they released it at a time when no one had really anything to do and it wasn't much going on race wise. So it was people got interested and stuck it out. That's how LeVar Burton got his start. So and then where did he end up? Star Trek, The Next Generation for years and years and years. Okay. And Sesame Street. So, it's one of those things that movies move people and they tell a story, but they also expose the people that are supposed to be portrayed in the light that they want to be portrayed in. I guess you could put it.
So if we're gonna cast your movie right now, who plays a young Val James? What actor?
I don't know. That's who's going to play a young Val James? Let's see.
Alba.
Idris Alba can't skate. Listen to her. Well, let me see.
Special
now.
effects.
Michael B.
Jordan?
What's his
Jordan.
You know what? I was just looking
Jordan,
at
Michael B. Jordan.
Michael B. Jordan. Yeah, right.
That's enough work.
Let's see. I was looking. Let me see. I was checking out Mark Frazier, and
He's a hockey player.
they're saying who's going to play me, right? So, well, you got to have someone who's going to skate, right? At some point in the movie.
Michael B. Jordan.
So I don't know. I guess Idris Alba would be all right if he could
Like
skate.
old Val.
Yeah, but
Earl,
he would play old Val. Listen to it. We got the peanut gallery.
Earl,
coming
who are
in
you
now.
gonna cast?
Let me
I'll
see.
play John Brophy.
You'll play John Brophy?
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be all right, huh?
Yeah, flipping out.
Oh man, I don't know. Who do you think, Earl?
I mean, honestly, I have a if my comedy career doesn't work out, and I think most people would might hope that happens, but I fancy myself as a casting director, a young Val James. I could see maybe Denzel Washington. Of course, he'll have to take some
skating
steroids to look like you did. But
I don't know. Yeah, that would be nice, huh?
Well, I think it's still a story that needs to be told because I don't think, sadly, there is still some racism that happens. I know a few years ago when Donald Brashear went to play in that league in Quebec, that was for retired players and maybe players winding down. He was called the N-word on ice. So I do think the story still needs to show that side of that. It's not fixed completely, but
and you're right. It does have to be told. But if we're thinking about Quebecers and this racism thing, the Quebecers they don't care. They'll go after anybody. Okay, I lived there for 2 years. I know what Quebec people are like. Now they're going to bust your balls a lot. But then if you stand up for yourself, then they're going to have some respect for you. Okay. And then all that stuff stops. Okay. Like I can remember going to Chicoutimi and going to Trois-Rivières, Three Rivers. And man, the fans were brutal. We were sitting in Shawinigan and it was all chain link fence. And they had like a baseball backstop over us. And we're coming out and we're looking at the bench and we're going, no, what the hell's with that for? So now we get the game going and we're sitting there and all of a sudden the change starts raining down on us. So people are throwing quarters, they're throwing everything. I picked up $2.50 that night. You know, so that was worth worth the beer back then, right? So that was pretty, you know, lit cigarettes the whole night. That's when they smoked in rinks too. So it was like they'd be smoking, you'd be gagging, they'd be shooting lit cigarettes at you, change, you know. I even had nuts and bolts thrown at me at one point. So not from up there though. That's going into the pro leagues.
Yeah.
But Quebecers are very lively people and passionate. Now, it doesn't matter whether you're black, green, orange, they're going to figure something out to call you. All right. And then once you call them on a little bit and show them that you're not going to take it, well, now they back off. Okay. Which is what anyone does. And they just want to see if you got any nuts, is what it is.
Well, I guess it still makes me sad that, you know, recently, a couple of years ago, I know when Wayne Simmons was on a breakaway, and I believe it was in Montreal, and I'm not trying to paint all of Quebec as racist, but, you know, someone threw a banana.
A bunch.
And, you know, I know my friend Roger Maxwell, who had a cup of coffee with Boston and played primarily in the minor leagues. He said, I think when he was with the Alexandria Warthogs of the ECHL, they were playing, I think, like Shreveport or something, and the fans put a basketball net behind the goalie net, and it's just like, this is not 40 years ago. This is 5-10 years ago.
A couple of years ago, exactly. Well, man, you know what? Let me see. So, I've seen octopuses, I've seen bananas, I've seen fish, I've seen stuffed monkeys, I've seen watermelons, anything you can think of. I've seen pretty much all of it. And this was before people are actually recording this and keeping track of what was going on. And everyone thinks that everything's so bad now, but you're only seeing the tip of the iceberg, and only because of social media and cell phones. Now, if we had cell phones back in the 80s, forget it. You know, I can remember I can remember telling stories to people, and they'd look at me and go, no way that happened. You're making that all up. So now, at least with everything that's happening and with everyone's filming, what I said then has some credibility.
Sure. When you played your first game for the Buffalo Sabres, I'm curious about two things. One, there was another African-American player on the team, Tony McKegney.
Yes.
Did he give you advice of like, hey, as a fellow African-American, this is what you should expect at the NHL level? You will get razzed by fans, players.
Not really, because like Tony had been in the league a few years at that point, and all the razzing he'd gotten, so it was pretty much over for him. Right. When I came in, though, that was a whole different story, because him and I had conflicting hockey styles. He was a goal scorer, skater. I was a skater, but I didn't score goals, but I fought. Okay, so when you go out and beat up somebody's favorite fighter, well, there's going to be some repercussions, and it's either it's going to be come out in racism or stuff being thrown on the ice, but it's going to come out somehow.
And that gets me.
Okay, and I was going to say that I can remember going to Boston, and I hate to do this again in Boston, but
Boston deserves it.
But I was on the ice and I could hear little mummers, not really because the National Hockey League, so people try and curb themselves a little bit. But after the game, we were sitting out in our chartered bus waiting to go back to get back on the plane and come back to Buffalo, and they opened the side doors after the bus was loaded, and everybody come pouring out, and they realized it was the Sabres bus. Okay, so first thing people start saying is send the N word out. Okay, we want him. Send him out here. I can remember that happening. They were shaking the bus, and they threw beer bottle at the windshield, spiderweb that. It was one of them scary times. I was more afraid of the players that were on the bus than I was for myself, because I know that if something happened, they'd be helping me out and all that. And I didn't want anything to happen to them, because they were good guys, and up to that point, they'd had my back everywhere. You know, something happened. And so on every team I pretty much played for, we had it like I had it like that. Only had a couple of players on a couple of teams that were a little iffy, if you know what I mean. And
Right.
but mostly supporters. And the thing is that when you get people like that, as long as you show them that you've got a big heart and that you're there for the team, and all that other bullshit just gets thrown to the side, right? You know, they have to learn to live with it. I guess it's one of those things where there's a lot of things we have to learn to live with when we grow up. And you know, if everyone just looked at it as being nice to somebody, treating them the way you want to be treated, I know that's an old cliche that's always been said. It makes life a whole lot easier, and life would be simpler if people would do that. And the thing is that it's an ignorance factor, I think, that's keeping us from making that next step to where we should go. Uh, if you understand a race, you understand what irks them, and you understand what turns them on. Well, now you can tap dance around all those sore spots, and maybe help that person, whatever color they may be, deal with the situations that are being thrown at. And if everyone thought that way, we wouldn't have any problems. And then, like I said before, it's an understanding thing. And like I was saying earlier, when people have to give something up, they're very reluctant to do so, and they're going to resist with all their heart. They've been resisting this thing since what, 1860? Okay, so here we are, and we're still going at it. So, and the thing is that it's getting better now, but there's still a lot of things that we can do as a people that'll improve things. And until we start doing these things, I don't really think that we can make that technological jump and make all those things that everybody wants to happen. You know, what do we want? We want to live in houses that are totally powered on their own, where you don't have to pay hydro, you don't have to pay water, and all this kind of thing. And we can do that if we want to. People just don't want to do it right now. No, look at this pandemic. Look what it shut down. But yet everything keeps functioning. It's not functioning at the level that it should, but it's still going.
Well, absolutely. And I'll move it to a funner subject.
Yeah.
But it goes to your game in Buffalo when you fought Terry O'Reilly. I asked you if Tony McKegney gave you advice. You had some very tough teammates, specifically Larry Playfair. Does Larry Playfair, Steve Dykstra, Mike Foligno come up to you before that game and go, "Hey, you're probably going to have to fight Terry O'Reilly"? This is because there was no YouTube back then, so
No,
you had to
go ahead.
pretty much rely on your teammates for a scouting, I guess, on the other players.
Right. Well, the thing too is that you watch hockey games and that too at the time, so I already knew who all the tough guys were. I knew that Terry O'Reilly was leading the pack. Larry, I think at that time Larry Robinson was playing for him too, if I'm not mistaken. He'd gotten traded from Montreal to them. Anyways, so I knew the Terry O'Reilly, and it was the Crowder brothers. There was a couple other guys in there, but they weren't heavyweights, so I didn't have to worry about them too much. I had to worry about the middleweights and heavyweights, and those were the three guys in question. So I remember the first game in Boston, the game that we were talking about earlier. I ended up fighting one of the Crowder brothers. I'm not sure if it was Keith or the other one, but it was one of them, and I cleaned him out pretty good. And so the fans were pretty pissed off about that. And I can remember going back out in the ice after my penalty was up, and I get on the ice, and all of a sudden the other twin comes out. And I'm looking at him and going, so I guess I thought it was deja vu all over again. You and I talked about the Cornwall thing with the Barden twins. Remember that, Earl?
Yes.
Okay, so here I am going deja vu, right? So it was the same pretty much thing. I said to the guy, well, look, if you're out here to avenge your brother, let's get this over with quick. I don't feel like skating around getting tired. And it was like, no, I don't want to fight with you, right? I'm not out here to fight with you. I'm out here to just do what I have to do. So the game went on. The shit was okay. Nothing happened. I sat on the bench after that. And, game ended. So the next game we're in Buffalo, and that's when I ended up fighting Terry. And that was one of those things. I knew it was coming because after I beat up the Crowder brother, I know Terry will be coming after me next time. So like once he was on the injury list, on injury reserves at that point, he was just coming off an injury. I don't know what it was, but they said it was an injury. So in Buffalo. I can remember we lined up and we were in our end and we're off to the right hand side of the goaltender. So at that point, my job as a left winger is to go out and try and make sure that that left-handed shot for the defense doesn't get a shot off at net or doesn't get the puck. So I step back, and you know how I don't know if everyone that's played hockey knows that when you're in your own end of the ice, you know, you've got the defenseman at the face-off, and you've got a winger on their team at the face-off, and the winger from our team lines up behind both those guys, or depends on what you guys got going on. You may switch around. Okay, so I was on the outside looking to go straight out to the left point. So I took a step back. Terry was like standing right in front of me. He was like facing me. He wasn't in hockey form. Okay, so I'm like, okay. So I took a step, and for me, it would have been to the left. For him, it would have been to the right. So I took a step to the left, give myself a clear shot at the defenseman. He took a step to the right, which put him right back in front of me. Okay, so I took another step to the left, which put me out. By the time we got done, we were almost standing in the middle of close to the inside the other face-off circle on the other side. So puck drop, I beeline out to the defenseman. He's right in front of me. I'm going to go right through him, right? No, he goes to stop me with the stick. So I threw the stick up, and it was like a cross-check move, right? So our sticks hit, and it was like a cross, and we hit. And right there, the gloves dropped. It wasn't like we asked anybody or I said, let's go. It was like, okay, we know we got to go. This is what everybody expects. Let's give them what they want. And so we went, and I was fortunate enough to win that one. Okay, so, and then that was a bad night for Terry because, oh man, period later, he was messing up again, and Larry tuned him. So Larry Playfair. So it was like, oh my gosh, what a bad night. But you know what? True warrior. True competitor, biggest heart in the world, wonderful man. And I say, hi, Terry. Thanks for the memories. You know, he's like,
hope he's listening.
I
hope he's listening.
Yeah, but I'm sure the word will get back to him. He's got friends. Okay, so
I don't think he's going to thank you for the memories. I don't think he's going to thank you for the memories.
Well, we look at each other like this. Yeah, we thank each other. It's a job. You know, we know we got to do it, and we need each other. Okay, if he wasn't there, I would never have been called up. Okay, yeah. I got to look at it like that.
There you go.
Okay, and who knows if I may never have even been in the organization if there wasn't any fighting around, right? But it worked out, and I was able to get my feet wet more or less in the National League, and at that point, I wasn't thinking about it at that time, but it ended up being me making history by stepping out in the ice as a Black player, American player in the National Hockey League.
Let me ask you this: where you living these days? How's post life and like how's that all? Where you at?
I'm up in Niagara Falls, Ontario.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's my wife's from here. Well, she actually was born in Port Colborne, which is about a half an hour ride from here. And we went down to the States. I wanted to stay in the States. I had a pretty good job down there after hockey. I was doing things for 9X, you know, like on the lines and that. And I had just got my 3 months in, so they kept me. So things were going good. So and we were gonna start on her green card to get her the green card. But at that point in time, and it's probably the same right now, is that you had to wait a year, and that year wait time had to be done in the States, you know, and if a death occurred in the family, they weren't allowed to leave. You had to get special permission for that, and they could either say yes or no. And the stipulation was if you left, you would have to start the ordeal all over again. Okay, so it was like my wife's father ended up dying, so we had to leave. So the thing was that I decided at that point, well, you know what? I can get a job up there. I'm not worried about that. Okay, I can find something to do. Like I'd been up in Canada pretty much my whole life at that time, anyways, except for my pro career, which was in the States a little bit. You know, I ended up at the end being back in Toronto, which is in Canada, right? So it was one of those things. And what I liked about it and coming back here, which I didn't really paid too much attention to at the time was, man, they got great medical up here. It's just like, you go to the doctor, it's all paid for. It's like, how can you beat that? And it's like, the thing is that they take a little bit of money off everybody's check each week and put it towards the fund, right? And it's one of those things that is just great.
Yeah, I wanted to marry, my friend's a comic and she's Canadian. She got deported, and I was going to marry her so she can get into the States and I can get medical. Like, we had a whole thing going and it never happened.
Yeah. What happened?
She ended up getting the green card, so that we called the marriage off.
Well, I don't know. I might have pursued that just so I could get double duty going, right?
Well, you got to go pick up the book, Black Ice. You can get it on Amazon. You can get it on Indigo. You can get it on Audible, Barnes & Noble, everywhere you get books. Or you can go to Earl's house in West Hollywood, and he'll give you his copy.
Well, did you hear that, Earl?
Well, I won't give you my autographed copy, but I will do a live read of it. It will take about 6 hours, and we'll watch all of Val's fights on YouTube, from Shane Sherla to Gary Rissling to Terry O'Reilly. And, Val, I just want to say thank you so much for spending time with me and Chad. I always love exposing Chad to some of my favorite hockey players. And it's your book and your story is really, I'm trying not to cry because your story has really affected me, and you've paved the way from everyone from Peter Worrell to Graham Townsend to, the kid the Kings drafted this year at number 2 overall, Quentin Byfield. So just thank you so much for really sharing a story that needed to be told a long, long time ago. And I hope the NHL treats you better. And your story deserves to be heard.
Val,
Earl,
are you in social media? Can we follow you?
Yes, at Valmore James.
Okay.
On Twitter, at Valmore_James.
Yeah.
And it's a locked account, so as soon as you ask for a request, I'll let you in.
Okay. Sorry to interrupt there, Earl. So go ahead.
Oh no, I just I have to go to the dentist right now for some surgery. That's the only reason. We won't get into that's another podcast. But
yeah. Well, you know what? Before you go
right now.
Before you go, if anytime you guys want me to come on, just give me a shout.
Sounds good to me.
Okay, how's 2 hours? How's 2 hours sound? What are you doing?
Well, that's kind of a quick shout, really.
2 hour turnaround. We'll chop it up.
I really enjoy it. It's nice to reminisce, and like I was going to say to Earl earlier, the NHL has been a little better, Earl. Actually, they featured me in the NHL Black History Truck last year in Toronto, and before the pandemic hit. So it was a pretty good time. Toronto had me doing a couple of things while I was up there, so it was one of those experiences that we were supposed to go back this year, but with the pandemic and that, I guess we won't be going anywhere for a while. I've got to. I'm going to be doing a podcast on Monday with the Amherst, and then probably Tuesday or Wednesday with the Sabres. We're going to go over all of these things that they've done over the last year. I don't know if they've put out a T-shirt and all of that, and I saw the video that I don't know if you saw the video or not, that they put together this year on the Sabres site. Earl might have saw it. He's always on top of those kind of things. But it was one of those things.
I'm always looking for videos on you, Val, because I think your fight with Shane Sherla in '86 looks like it was filmed on a viewfinder.
Probably was, really. You know how that is.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, on behalf of myself, Earl, and Golden Artist Entertainment, thank you so much for coming on, man. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you for having me on. Like I said before, if you want me to come back, just let me know.
All right.
I'll be back.
Ladies and gentlemen,
I'll have some more stories.
We definitely will.
Ladies
and gentlemen, we'll have you on before the end of the. Yeah, we'll have you on before the end of the month, maybe, and we'll now that we covered the unfortunate racism. Maybe we'll get into the fights, which is a little more fun to talk about, and how you beat up Gary Rissling and stuff like that. So thank you again, Val.
He was, yeah. We'll save that for
Let's
then.
tease it. Let's tease
we'll have
it.
a good laugh.
All right.
And
thanks.
Thank you to your wife.
Okay, thanks, Earl. Thank you. Thank you too, Chad. Thank you guys for having me on. I really enjoyed myself, and hopefully it was an entertaining segment for everyone who's listening.
It was fantastic. And please follow him on social media, buy his book. And that's a wrap, guys. Leave a 5-star review on the iTunes, and we will see you very soon. Good night.